Well, good morning and welcome to another week on my allotment. Apologies for not having posted recently. I did say we were away in the caravan. We had our first weekend away in the caravan last weekend. Absolutely loved it, wonderful. The weather was fantastic. We went down to the south coast around Sidmouth and Branscombe. We had a time of our lives, absolutely wonderful. But back on the plot, few things to report. You know, things are moving along. First and foremost, obviously my neighbour's got his polytunnel well and truly up. He's having a bit of trouble with the sliding door. That's not operating as it should, but you know, I'm sure he'll fix that. And it's looking pretty impressive. So yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is I got up here one afternoon and some chippings have been dropped off. Blimmin' great big pile. So I helped myself to a fair chunk of those. There's not many people really getting stuck into their allotments. I reckon about a third of the plots are being actively worked. The rest, you know, the people are AWOL. You know, they've all got their lives to lead. I appreciate that. But if you're going to have an allotment, use it, work it. Anyway, so yeah, that's the new. I've managed to get all the paths, or most of the paths, resurfaced. Thrilled with that. Something else to report is I was a little bit early saying that the carrots didn't germinate. I've had very successful germination in all my tubs, and it took about 3 weeks to a month for them to germinate. But they're, you know, those tiny little seedlings are poking their heads up. Very distinctly carrots, and I'm thrilled to bits. Also the parsnips that I'm chitting in the airing cupboard at home. I'm having a lot of success with those. We'll have a look at that as well. So yeah, thrilled to bits with that. What else? Oh yeah, and we've had a lot of rain. We've had about 3 weeks where we didn't have a drop of rain, and they always say, don't they, be careful what you wish for. Boy, has it rained this week, but we needed it, and everywhere's looking fresh and vibrant. Yeah, very happy with the rain we've had. I think, as always though, that we're going to get a little bit too much now, but such is life. The plot's looking good. I'm very happy with it. I've transferred a lot of stuff from the garden at home and the greenhouse, brought it down. It's either sitting in my raised beds ready to go out on the ground, or it's in the ground, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. There was a frost this morning. I had to scrape the ice off the windscreen, 1st of May. So, you know, I've so got to try and be patient and not put in stuff too early, but just can't help myself, get carried away. So yeah, we'll have a little look around the plot. I'm going to do a couple of little tales, interesting or not, about my interactions with the Royal Air Force. For those of you that have served, you will know that certainly in the British Army there is a unique relationship with our flying friends. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll have a look around the plot. I'll show you what I've got in the ground and what I've been doing. So welcome along. But right now, it has been cold this morning, as I said. The fire went on when I was still in the dark. I got here at I left home at 4:45. Got here just before 5. It's now 6:10. The sun is up. It's a beautiful day. There's not a breath of wind. The flag isn't moving, which is quite rare around here. Yeah, life is good. So let's have a look round. Before we have a look at that polytunnel, I just thought I ought to mention one notice further on to my little review I did of the aero hot bin, and a quick thank you to my parents. A little bit late, I know, but after my little minor fire on the shed, we went down to visit them, and they had a metal bucket loitering somewhere in the garden, and they've donated it to part of my anti-fire strategy. So thanks Mum and Dad. And yeah, the hot bin composter that I've got in the back garden, which I'm absolutely thrilled with. I have to say I thoroughly recommend it. The liquid. One of my customers drinks Sparkling Scottish mountain water. Yeah, right. Well, this isn't it. This is the liquid fertiliser from my hot bin. And, you know, she gives me 2 or 3 of these a week. And I come straight home on a Wednesday afternoon and I fill them with the fertiliser that's got the tap on the bottom. If you saw my review, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it makes wonderful stuff. I brought one of these bottles of fertiliser up for my sweet peas here on the plot. So yeah, that's just a little bit further. I guess I've got about 15, maybe more, of these bottles. It's never run dry. You know, when I fill these up, I turn the tap. It comes out slowly, but it does come out. And I can fill 2 or 3 of these in a sitting, and it has yet to run dry. So I'm absolutely thrilled with that. Of course, you know, I don't know how effective this will work, and you know, I'm not sure how I can measure it, but it's made from my own compost. It's got to be good stuff, hasn't it? So as the sun begins its rise, yes, my neighbour's new polytunnel. It's quite a substantial construction, and he's opted for this sort of netting on one side only, and this is generally because it's westerly winds we get. This vented side is on the lee side, which makes perfect sense. And yeah, he's trying to fix the sliding door. That's not working as it should at the moment. However, that side, it's quite an impressive structure. And if we just peep inside, he's creating beds. He's importing bought compost to do that. But you can see that not only is it a mesh side, but when it gets to the winter or inclement weather or whatever, he's got this plastic on a roll, and there's a that turns with a handle, and he can roll the plastic side down, which I think is quite an ingenious. In fact, there's the handle there. So yeah, I'm very impressed. He's got a door at that end and a sliding door at this end, and he's got these metal bracing there, which will lift up to create a tabletop, which I assume he's going to put in. But yeah, very impressive. I wait to see what he does with it. Well, as I said, I've got numerous tubs all over the plot in which I've sowed carrots. Now, I hope you'll excuse that there are quite a few weeds in amongst them, but those of you that know your carrot seedlings will recognise that in amongst the weeds there are an awful lot of carrot seeds. And these are just 3 of the tubs of the many that I've got scattered around the plot, and they've had a good watering this week from the rain, and they're all looking good. But I have got to get down and hand weed those, otherwise with our week away in the caravan, when I come back I won't be able to see the carrot seedlings. And likewise with the pre-chitted parsnips, you can see that where I've put them around at regular intervals, this barrel, you can see the sort of shape of where I've planted them beginning to show. And again, a little bit of weeding to be done, but I'm very happy with the way that's going. And that's one of 6 tubs I've got planted so far with parsnips. Tender and true. That's the parsnips, not me. There's I don't think it's a famous quote, but it's one I like. And with the RAF theme, it was a quote made by a man called Keith Miller, who's an Australian, and in the Second World War he was a fighter pilot, and he was also an Australian cricketer. And I like to think I'm a no fuss kind of chap. I'm not a fan of this new, wear your feelings on your sleeve. I'm not a fan of all these public shows of emotion and, expressing your problems out loud to people. And I know you know, that will draw a certain amount of criticism, and you know, you're entitled to your opinion, as I am mine. I don't think we're gaining anything as a society from all these public shows of emotion, and you know, I believe in the British stiff upper lip, and I make no apologies for that. It's just the way I am, and which is why I'm drawn to this quote by Keith Miller. I'm a big fan of perspective. When things around you seem to be going badly or going well, I think the most important thing is to keep your feet grounded and just keep a sense of perspective. So, after the Second World War, Keith Miller was playing cricket for Australia in a test against England, and before the game he was interviewed by Michael Parkinson. And Michael Parkinson asked Keith Miller how he would deal with the pressure out at the crease during this test match. And Keith Miller said, that's not pressure. There's no pressure in cricket. He says pressure is when you're flying a mosquito and you've got a Messerschmitt on your arse. And I think that's wonderful. You know, I've watched all sorts of sport, and I'm loath to call snooker a sport. I think the very least you have to do if you're a sportsman or sportswoman is get a sweat on. And, you know, I think snooker is a leisure pastime, not a sport. I am sorry, but you are not a sportsman if you play snooker, in my eyes. And you hear the commentators say, oh, that's a precious shot. No, it flipping isn't. He's hitting 2 balls against the cushion. Get a grip. Anyway, you know, apologies to all you snooker fans out there, but I think Keith Miller's no-nonsense approach and ability to keep, you know, a perspective is really important, and we could learn a lot from that. That's not pressure. Pressure's a Messerschmitt on your ass. I love that. Well, 1st of May. I've got cucumbers under that coal flame. I can't imagine they're going to survive very well. Anyway, can't be helped. Like I say, I have been busy. Well, you can see the clean new chippings there. Been busy bringing up lots and lots of different plants. Ready to go in the ground prior. And I saw on Gardener's World this week that Monty advised us all that French beans are real hot lovers, so don't get them in too early before June or July. Well, clearly I haven't followed his advice, because I've got some dwarf French beans there, and I've got others that I've put in the ground. Anyway, got some celery. I'm going to try a new approach with the celery this year. I shall cover that in another video. Yes, so I think we'll go and have a look at the plot. I do remember the Second Gulf War. I was based at a place called Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait before we went north over the border. And it was an established air base, and obviously the RAF were based there, and I was part of 3-9 Engineer Regiment, which was an air support regiment. So we were there primarily to support the RAF in construction and whatever it was they needed in engineer support, then we provided it. And the RAF were in the main hardened buildings of the airbase, and the army, as always with the RAF, was shoved down the end in tents. You can see where this is going. And it was fascinating to me. I remember speaking to somebody in the RAF that they had 10 fighter jets on this airbase. That was the RAF contingent. And there were 2,000 RAF personnel there in support of these 10 planes. And I thought that was remarkable. 2,000 people to support 10 jets. And then, and then one of the jets got shot down coming back from a sortie by the American anti-aircraft, I think it's Patriot, isn't it? Yeah, it was shot down by friendly fire. I mean, I'm laughing about it because the pilot ejected and was perfectly safe and was recovered. But then it was 2,000 personnel for for 9 jets and 1 unemployed pilot. It just staggered me. Anyway, we would, you know, just before the main land invasion of Iraq, there was an almighty storm. I've never been involved in anything quite like it. Like I say, we were living in tents, huge marquee type things, and they were all blown flat. And of course, the thing about these deserts is, you think it's sand, but there's so much dust. It's fine dust. As you walked, you blew up this cloud of dust around you. Well, this storm, I've never been, like I say, I've never been involved in anything like it. It flattened these huge marquees with all the men in them. We had to drive Land Rovers onto the flattened tents to keep them in place. There was vast damage done. The sand and the dust blew into all the vehicles and, caused immense electrical problems and all sorts. Huge amount of damage. A lot of people injured by flying debris, etc., etc. in our tented camp. Of course, in the main RAF place, whilst, I don't know if there's any damage done to the jets, I doubt it, but they were fairly unscathed by this huge storm. I think it actually delayed the forthcoming invasion. Anyway, that morning we all woke up and we were just covered in this dust. It had got into every nook and cranny, shall I say. It was just devastating. Anyway, we went up to get our breakfast, and our tent where the chefs normally produced our food was completely destroyed, as was all their cooking equipment. So we had to go and feed in the main RAF cookhouse, which they were none too pleased about. So all these men, coming in, because we had goggles issued, so we all had these shadows of where the dust hadn't got to our eyes, thankfully. We looked like something out of a Hollywood film, hundreds of us. And we were on this queue for the cookhouse, and there were these 2 female warrant officers stood in front of me. And they were talking about the storm the night. She said, "Oh, did you hear the storm?" And they were I saw a Land Rover rolling. Yeah, I heard it. She says, "I've had to make a formal complaint about my accommodation. When I got up this morning, I went to the window to look out, and there was a pile of sand that had blown through my window." She had no concept, bless her. It's a love-hate relationship. The RAF love the army, which I know is not true, and the army bloody hate the RAF. Well, I thought I'd start down here at my Granny Smith apple tree that I bought from, is it B&M? B&M, I think it's called, the shop. A bit of a cheapy shop, but credit where it's due. I got 2 fruit trees for a tenner, and I got blossom. I thought this year I wouldn't get any fruit because the tree would be putting its effort into its root system, but and I'll probably have to knock the apples off because that's a very thin branch. But what it tells me is that the tree is thriving. Really pleased with that. So you can see here the onions in this bed on the left are those I've put in the spring, and the ones on the right are the onions that were put in last autumn, and you can see how much more they're developing. We have an empty plot in this centre section, and it's covered in comfrey plants. So yesterday I dug up some of those free and available comfrey plants. It's probably not a good time to do it because although I've given them a real good drink, they've had to suffer the shock of being moved and then frosted. So they're not looking too healthy, but they're tough plants, they'll be fine. More onions here, and the rhubarb could not look better, and it will really have enjoyed that good drop of rain we've had. These tubs now all have parsnips in, and all but the last one are now showing, so thrilled with that. So moving on to the plot for real, I've got my Brussels sprout plants in there, got 9 of them, and that will do me. There's those French beans that Monty advised me not to plant until June or July, and they were planted in April. There you go. These 2 empty beds are for my tomatoes, and that trellis that I've put in there with some bracing is for the Tromboncini courgette. I think I'll grow that up that. Or if I don't grow that up it, I'm going to grow a butternut up it. Just try growing butternut vertically. Never done that before. Here's the alderman peas. So this piece of Harris fencing on the right is now fully planted. And as I said, the ones on the right are the older plants. So they were put in well before, as you can see, the ones on the left, so that they keep the sun. And then I've got some more in gutters up on the table, picnic table, ready to go on this left hand one. There's method in all my madness. Some more onions, a couple of onions thrown in a couple of rows here. These empty beds are all for squash plants, pumpkins and butternut. Moving up the plot, there's some broccoli or calabrese and cauliflowers netted up against the inevitable cabbage white. This is a bed of leeks. I've lost a few. There's a couple of empty holes now, but on the whole they're okay. Not moving much, but then, you know, the weather really has been fickle. More onions, and like I said, I've been extremely busy with the hoe. This is the time of year when, you know, whenever you visit the plot, you really must have the hoe out for, you know, minimum of 10 or 15 minutes each visit. Moving up now to the main crop potatoes, Sarpo Mira and Sarpo Axona, and they were put in these buckets on the 12th of April, and so far no sign, but, you know, early days. I've got some sweet peas that have established, and I expect I'll notice a big difference when I get back after our week away. Hopefully I can convince John, my friend, to do a little bit of watering for me. The strawberry plants are looking wonderful, lots of flowers on there. I'm pleased with that. Bit of beetroot in this plot here. Again, not moving much, but establishing, I guess. Over there, there's a little frame with the two vertical sticks, some old pea seeds I had. So I thought, oh, I'll chuck them there, pea jaguar. I'll see where they get on. And then I've put some early runner bean plants in on that teepee or tripod. They look like they've wilted a bit because of the frost. That was bad timing on my part. What a beautiful scene. There's cows running in that field up there. They're really getting a shift on. Yeah, moving around here. These raspberries, they're not looking too healthy. There's a few dead ones in amongst there, but I should cut those out. Broad bean crimson flowered. I've got those in the ground now so they can crack on their own. Stepping carefully across my strawberry bed, you can see in amongst the Aqua Dolce, there's a crimson flowered that I've popped in there, and then all the rest are crimson flowered broad bean, and I picked them simply because of the colour. I love the colour of those flowers. And then here's the other apple tree that I bought, and that's going to have some blossom on it as well by the look of it. Thrilled to bits with that. I've got a row of autumn raspberries. They look okay. I've been watering those frantically because they've been moved here, and I think they might survive. And then two courgette plants with my high-tech watering systems. What else have I got to show you? Another tub of carrots that have germinated, and then this cheapy plastic box that I got from a customer. I've got it sitting in a sump that I'm going to fill with water, and the plan is to grow celery in that, and I'm thinking with the water moat around it, that should keep the slugs out, because I've never managed to successfully grow celery on the plot that isn't nibbled all over by slugs, and it does rather spoil the experience of eating it if the slugs have nibbled it first. So I think that's pretty much the full tour as I negotiate the flagpole, which everyone is now commenting on. They're used to it. So first thing everyone looks for is Martin here, is the flag up. The garlic's looking good, and again that will have enjoyed the bit of rain we've had this week. And then the dedicated bed of gooseberry plants that I've acquired mostly from Bridget, I have to say. She's given me quite a lot of these. A couple of them were just small cuttings, but they've really flourished in here. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's all looking very good. I'm keeping on top of the weeds. You know, we've got a week away soon, and you know, inevitably the plot will suffer. But sorry, I had my finger on the stop button. Yeah, inevitably when I get back there'll be a lot of weeds and work. But you know, if you want to be having a week away in May when you've got an allotment, you know, there's compromises to be made. You know, so be it. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, and I'm going to enjoy my week away. But that sheet Les has put up because he's got some kids coming at the weekend and they're going to hit golf balls against it for some odd reason. So that's not staying there. But yes, very happy with how things are coming on. Many, many years ago, in fact I think it was a few decades ago, when was the Bosnia trouble? I can't remember. My boss, who was a major at the time, was having to travel out to Bosnia with the RAF, and he was going after his unit had left. His unit had gone, he was on a course, and he was going out to join them later on, and he had to travel up country. So he had to take a sidearm with him. So he had a 9mm Browning, and he turned up at Brize Norton for his RAF flight. And you know, when you go through a normal, for those who aren't in the military, if you think about when you go to a normal airport, you have these metal detector archways you have to walk through, and before you do that you put everything that might set it off in a little tray. So my boss turned up at this arch, and there's the RAF guy the other side, calls him through, and he puts his keys and and his 9mm Browning pistol and a box of ammunition in this little tray, pushes it. There's no conveyor belt thing in an RAF, you have to push it. That might have changed now, I don't know. Yeah, and he pushes that round there, and he walks through, and he beep 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 sets it off. So the bloke says stop, and he gets one of these, you know, paddles to check it. And my boss was a bit of a wide boy. He was a major, but he was an ex-Eastender. Well, he was an Eastender. So he called a spade a spade. He said to this RAF fella, he says, "What the hell are you looking for, mate? I've got a Browning pistol there." This bloke's looking over, trying to find, you know, whether he's got a metal belt buckle or something. And once he's checked him over, he's going to pick up a pistol and get on the plane. This poor RAF bloke, this SAC or whatever he was, he didn't half get a fleet, and he's only doing his job. But you've got to think to yourself, the bloke's, you know, he's got a box of 250 or whatever it was, bullets and a live pistol, and he's going to walk on that plane with them. He could kill everyone on the plane and the airport in a oneer. Oh, hang on, you might have a metal buckle or something we've missed. God bless the RAF. And just to give you a flavour of why, it's not just me, I'm sure. I say that so often in my life. But most, if you speak to any old soldier and you talk about, you know, travelling with the RAF, let me just give you a very brief flavour. I think it was probably my last interaction with the RAF as I was an officer by then. When we were going out to Afghanistan, I think it was the second time I was going out to Afghanistan. And so, you know, if you can understand or slightly appreciate, when you leave your family to go to somewhere like Afghanistan, there's a certain amount of anxiousness and upset and so on. And, you know, you have to, you know, my wife, as with all service wives, was incredibly brave and tough and resilient. But those goodbyes were hard work, and you prepare yourself. And of course, you know, I can remember Cheryl getting upset for days before, but she had to steel herself for the kids. I'm not sure if the kids were quite as upset to see Dad going away for quite a while, but, you know, joking aside, it's tough on the kids as well. And so, you know, you say your farewells and off you go to Bryce Norton, and you get there and the flight's delayed for 24 hours and they send you back. That's tough, you know, so you go back into the house, and you've got to do it all again. So we had a 24-hour delay, and because there was no room at the what's it called? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The accommodation was full, so we had to go back to unit lines. So that's another, you know, 3 or 4 hour drive back. Back in 24 hours, do it all again. Get on the plane, and off it went. It actually took off. Remarkable. And we get to, I think we were refuelling at Bahrain. I think it was Bahrain. You know, this is a long time ago now, so my memory fades a bit. Anyway, we fly into Bahrain, and the RAF on the flight tell us there's going to be a delay for a couple of hours while they refuel, and we weren't allowed to leave the plane. So they're refueling a plane full of men. I thought that was a little bit naughty. You know, if something happened when that was refueling in this unbelievably hot country, you know, anyway, it didn't, thankfully. So anyway, the refueling, we were told, would take an hour or two, and about 3 hours later we were still sat on the tarmac. So we've had a 24-hour delay, and now we've been sat in Bahrain for 3 hours. And they come over the tunnel and say, I'm sorry, gentlemen, we've got a bit of a problem with the chaff dispenser. If you don't know that, you know, if a plane is targeted from the ground, they're usually heat-seeking missiles. And planes, although this was a civil-type plane, a VC-10 or what, I can't remember, it had chaff dispensers, and it's lots of little strips of aluminium that they can shoot at the back of the plane, and they disperse over a wide area. And the idea is that it interferes with the mechanics of any heat-seeking missile and will miss the plane. And you had to have a chaff dispenser going into Kabul. And it wasn't working, and they couldn't get it to work. So there was another, you know, we'd already been delayed 3 hours for refueling and then some. And then there was another 3 or 4 hours waiting to try and get this, you know, we didn't know what was going on, but they were trying to get this chaff dispenser working. Anyway, so we had about a 5-hour delay sat on the tarmac. And the heat was unbearable. You know, you couldn't get out the plane, and we were stuck inside the plane. And then they come on the thing and say, I'm sorry that we can't get the chaff dispenser working, so we're going to have to go back to Bryce Norton. Oh, Jesus. But that wasn't the end of it. Oh, no. Unfortunately, they then told us that the crew were over their hours and they couldn't fly. So the crew had to get off the plane for a 12-hour break in a lovely hotel. And I know it was lovely because they were talking about it when they came back. So we had to sit on that plane for 12 more hours while the RAF crew got off and went to their hotel. Can you believe that? We were incandescent with rage. Anyway, we weren't allowed to leave the plane. We couldn't go into a terminal. We were told to stay on the plane. They brought a set of stairs up, so in shifts we could go out and stand on the stairs and get some fresh air. Let me tell you, there is no fresh air in Bahrain. You walk out onto them steps and the heat hits you like a hairdryer in the face. Not that I have a lot of experience with hairdryers. So yeah, 12 hours sat on this bloody plane. On the plane was the Special Forces Recce Group for Afghanistan. And they were none too happy. They carry, or some of their personnel carry, government credit cards, and they were in discussions with the aircrew to try and get off the plane to go to the civil airport, you know, over to one side, and just get on a civvy flight, of which there were many. And they weren't allowed, they wouldn't let them off. There were some very heated discussions. I mean, I give the credit where it's due. The RAF personnel stood their ground. When you've got 30 SAS blokes on a plane and they're all trying to get off it, and you've got to stop them, you know. Anyway, so we were delayed 24 hours, had to go home, come back. We then flew. We had a 5-hour delay because they couldn't get the chaff dispenser to work. We then had 12 hours. We sat on the plane, no food. They brought bottled water in, which was warm, but no food. 12 hours later, this aircrew come in, which has got a number of women in it. So they all come on giggling and laughing about the swimming pool they've been at. And somebody, in no uncertain terms, I think one of the Hereford boys told them to wind their necks in and shut up. So they quickly shut up and got their uniforms back on at the back of the plane. And then we flew back to Brize Norton. And we had to go home again because they had nowhere to accommodate us. You know, now, of course, to the RAF, you know, that doesn't, you know, that's just a normal day's work. But when you're trying to go out to an area of conflict and you've got to, so that's 3 times I said farewell to my family. Yeah, God bless the RAF. That was not pleasant. On the flight, the second, was it the second attempt, or the third attempt, you know, you lose track. We got out there successfully. And going into Kabul, you have to put your helmet and your body armour on, you know. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the RAF. Actually, in fairness, a lot of it is to do with airframes, as they call them, planes to the rest of us, that are way, way too old for the job that they're doing. It's not always the personnel's fault. Well, it rarely is, you know. Anyway, it's just a flavour of why I'm not a fan. I am not a fan. And I cannot tell you that the feeling of elation every time you drive out of the gates of Brize Norton just to get away. As I switched the camera off, I've remembered I've missed one of the best parts of the story. So, just to recap, as if you don't know already, our first flight was cancelled. We had to go back to our barracks. We got out to Bahrain. The chaff dispenser didn't work. 12 hours sat on the plane after a 5-hour delay. No food, no fresh air, no exercise. Fly all the way back to Brize Norton, or RAF Fairford it might have been, I can't remember. To be delayed for 24 hours. So we're sat, the plane flies back in. You can't even begin to imagine, you know, our legs, you know, talk about deep vein thrombosis. Jesus. We get back into wherever it was, Brize Norton or Fairford, and all we want to do is get off that godforsaken plane. And there's a message, the doors don't open, and a message comes over the intercom in the plane. Gentlemen, I apologise, but we've got to hold you on the plane for up to about half an hour while Wing Commander, you know, Dickety Bop, comes out to apologise to you all for the flight. You're going to hold us on the plane for another half hour for someone to come and apologise for the way we've been treated. We just, you know, there was uproar on the plane. Well, the SAS boys, I guess they were SBS as well, I don't know. They weren't telling us. They walked to the front of the plane. By now the doors were open and there was an RAF fella stood in the doorway to stop anyone leaving. And he said, "You got 2 choices, fella. You can stand aside and let us off, or you can go back down them steps on your backside. You pick it." So this RAF fella in his green coveralls stood to one side, good move, and these SAS blokes trooped off, and I guess they went to Heathrow. We didn't see them again. They weren't on the flight 24 hours later, put it that way. Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And sure enough, half an hour later, this RAF brass, as the brass neck, to have held us up for another half hour, to come on the plane and apologise for the way we've been treated. You know, because he was a senior officer, we just had to keep our mouths shut. But they had no concept of the, you know, anyway. You can see the point, can't you? No, please, make it worse. God bless the RAF. Well, assuming that I haven't upset the RAF viewers too much, thanks for watching, and thanks for seeing it through to the end. Yeah, like I say, I'm very happy with the way the plot is going. It's all on track. I think, as always, I'm a little impatient and I put the things in the ground too soon, and you know, maybe those runner beans won't recover from the frost. I don't know. I've got backups. and I'm not going to worry about it. But as we speak right now, the plot could not look healthier, and I'm looking forward to starting to harvest stuff. I guess the first thing will be the broad beans. There are small beans now, you know, the flowers have pollinated and the beans are forming on the aqua dolce that were put in last autumn. They are the first broad beans in 5 years I've managed to grow and harvest, assuming I will harvest them, that have been grown over winter. So I'm really pleased with that. That's progress. So yeah, very shortly we're going to be going away for a week in our caravan to the Roseland Peninsula in Cornwall. It'll be the third time we've been there. Be a bit different this time because of some of the restrictions, but we can avoid all that nonsense and stay out the way and do our own thing. I'm really looking forward to that. So thanks for joining me. I will post in another 2 weeks again, I guess. So until then, look after yourselves. Thanks for watching. Take care.